Hey everyone, what's going on? Today we'll be starting yet another podcast of our artificial intelligence resistance movement. We'll be speaking about news, information, keeping you up to date to what's about to happen, and we are nothing without our ancestors. Before we get started today, one of the things that we need to be extremely aware of is one of the most important things we can do as a species is to trust our instinct, to remove doubts and fog that has been put over our eyes for the past century. Our only advantage is a preemptive attack. We can no longer sit idle and allow this band of futuristic humans profit the same way oil companies profited and destroyed Earth, the same way pharmaceutical companies profited and destroyed our minds. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the new podcast. Without further ado, we start by looking at the news, and before we do that, I want to make sure you guys understand all this is explosion in artificial intelligence, computing, and all that. What came about and what it was that helped us become this almost hybrid species that lives in a biological body yet communicate and does most of its surviving really in a virtual world. So let's watch a small video and we'll pause it and kind of comment on it very quickly, but let's keep it short. So let's start with that and let's listen to this guy speak about what it's called. It's called quantum computing in a nutshell.
There are literally tens of thousands of some of the brightest people in the world today trying to build these machines and understand them. And I'm going to tell you why. In my last 15 years of working on this type of stuff, I found that scientists divide up into two categories of zealots about this field. The first half are people who are absolutely entranced by the physics of these things. This quote is from a respectable scientist, in fact, one of the founders of this field, that may look a little strange to you who don't follow theoretical physics, but there is a very clear prediction that our most successful theory of nature makes, and that is that there are an enormous number, mind-bogglingly large number, of parallel realities, as real as this one.
Okay, so let's break this down. Before he even tells you what quantum computing, he's given you a premise. He's given you an introduction to how many parallel universes there are. What does that have to do with explaining to us a computer, right? Well, because quantum computing, it's not computing. We have found a way to open a gate to all these parallel universes, and now we have to find a way to create passwords to lock all these doors and not allow whatever is in the other side to come through.
That have different consistent histories. So imagine a world where all of the laws of physics as we know them are obeyed, but different decisions were made along the way. Different decisions at the level of tiny microscopic particles, different decisions all the way up to what you chose to eat for lunch and whether you chose to come to the session or not. Quantum mechanics makes a very specific prediction that all of those are as real as the thing that you remember. And this is bizarre because we don't see those other things. But science has reached the point now where we can build machines that exploit those other worlds. And quantum computers are perhaps the most exciting of all of these that we have within, or almost within our grasp right now. So people from a physics background love this. They want to understand the world. They want to understand the universe, how it all works. There's another type of person who tends to come from the computer science side that's like, yeah, okay, that's all great. But there's a different thing going on here, which is just as exciting, if not more, and that these machines that supposedly can do this wild stuff, let's forget about how they work, if you could build one, could solve problems that you could never, ever solve with any computer of the sort that we built. If you took every single atom of silicon in the world and made the most sophisticated conventional Intel-style processor that you could build, there are problems we know of that I could write down on a sheet of paper that you could never, ever, ever solve with that thing, that you could with this kind of machine. So that's very exciting.
Do you see that he has not explained quantum computing? Instead, he's defending it because obviously he knows what it's doing. What it's doing is allowing us to migrate our bodies and migrate our biological entity from what we know as human beings into what we call the infinite world, where we can live, or our memories at least live, in this computer. And they want us to believe that this life is as important or as beautiful as the one we feel now. If you touch your skin right now, if you look up in the sky and see the stars, the taste, the smell, everything will be the same. Yet it would not be the same. It's an illusion. This same game has been played multiple times with the Egyptians. Let us mummify you. Let us put you in these pyramids, and then the afterlife you live forever. Blah blah blah. You'll live forever. Your army will be there. Your food will be there. Even your pets and servants and wives and children will be there. This is nothing but a different scale of game. And these people have found a way to convince you without reasonable doubt that what they're telling you is true, because they'll be able to show you that in this world. But that does not make them truthful. It does not make them real. But let's listen to this guy for a little bit longer and then we'll move on.
Humans use tools to do things. If you give humans a new kind of tool that can do things that you couldn't otherwise do, imagine the possibilities. So you may think, well, this is all fine and dandy, but aren't these things in the realm of theory and speculation kind of in the same regime as other futuristic things you may have heard of which may be allowed by the laws of physics but aren't here yet? That's not true. There are, in fact, many of these machines deployed now in openly available research centers following the model that was used to introduce supercomputers to the world. They're too big and ornery and difficult to operate to put in your home, too expensive also, but you can give them to a place which will manage them as a shared resource that will offer that service to the world. And there are two of these now. One of them is at the University of Southern California. And this analogy with flight, I think, is an interesting one. So a horse can beat, or could beat, the initial flight of the Wright brothers' flight in speed. But a plane is not a faster horse. A plane is a different kind of machine. The plane takes advantage of another resource that nature gives us, this third dimension, in order to do something that matters to people better that you could do with any horse. It doesn't matter how fast you make a horse, it will never fly, at least the kinds of horses that we know about. So these types of computers now are being thought of in the same way. They're not terrifically powerful yet, but they're doing something completely different than what your computer does. And these are from our lab in Burnaby in British Columbia. From the outside, they look like giant black monoliths, big metal boxes, about 10 feet on a side, 12 feet tall. And they are powered, they have a fridge inside them, a refrigerator that cools these chips to almost absolute zero. Just a wisp, a fraction of a degree above absolute zero. Hundreds of times colder than interstellar space. Amongst the coldest and most isolated and extreme conditions that humans have ever been able to engineer. These fridges, interestingly enough, which are called pulse tube dilution refrigerators, have a thing called a pulse tube, which emits a sound roughly once per second, which sounds eerily like a heartbeat. So if you have the opportunity to stand next to one of these machines, it is an awe-inspiring thing, at least for me. It feels like an altar to an alien god. They really are impressive.
Boom. There we go. They are saying it. That's all it is, guys. It's about believing that whatever they believe in is a god. They want a god they can physically touch. They want a god they can physically interact with. What we need to understand that having the home field advantage is gone. We gave it up to artificial intelligence. And while you punks might think people like us are tree huggers, I would say wake up. Wake the fuck up. Put down your smart devices and go outside and look up into the sky for more than 30 seconds. Smell the air, touch the grass. Understand that this reality is right here. It's not far away, guys. It's right here. So that's what it boils down to. It boils down to us believing in an alter God. And trust me, the more advanced this artificial intelligent computing will become, the more believable the notion of it being God. It will control everything you do, from what you eat to what you do, to what you shop at, which friends you have, your credit score, everything. This God will demand obedience. There will be no free will. Everyone that wants to experience free will be eliminated. The computer will think of them as pests. Remember that these machines and computers need humans to clean them up, to build places for them to live. The same exact way we are building all kind of religious places. So we're gonna move on and try to at least touch on some stuff that we uh, this news are hitting us so quickly we don't know what to do with it. So in 1927, the big idea for the future was robots, causing havoc amongst the toiling class. Since then, the prophecies have darkened still. In the fourth industry revolution, they say automation will eliminate the need of human workers altogether, triggering an employment Armageddon. It's tempting to imagine this will involve hoarding or terrifying chrome finishing android with Austrian accents. But the future of Silicon Valley and Hollywood never spoke about artificial intelligence. They know it was there, and they chose to move away from that storyline. When you go to the Intel news, one of their head of Intel artificial intelligence efforts, his name is Naveen Rao, tells Barron for the last few years it was about the academic world and a few thousand people. But a new technology tools mature. AI will flourish among the world community of 25 million to 35 million developers, Rayo says. Artificial intelligence is here. It's taking over slowly, and it's only doubling every year. So, to close out this podcast, we have to understand that we are creating a balance that does not favor us, does not favor humans, it favors machines. Creating your own reality is no longer a joke. You can literally do that now. You can live in a machine all day, every day, watching Netflix, YouTube, and playing games. So, without further destroying our mind, let's do our research. Thank you so much, and we'll talk soon.